Well, thanks for finding me. I'm still here back in ancient Jerusalem. Found my jacket as well, which is good. Oh, dear me. Thought I was going to sneeze then. It's really, really hot here. As you can see, I haven't had much chance to shave as well. I haven't found a barber yet back here in ancient Jerusalem. I'm looking forward to getting back to Swansea, I've got to be honest, and get a shave. Tidy myself up a little bit. Anyway, it's all been going on since I last saw you. Dear me, ever since Jesus came back to life, things have just gone crazy. People saying that they've seen Jesus, him turning up to disciples. We're going to talk about a few of those stories because I've been able to get loads and loads of stories about everything that's been going on. But I want to tell you a particular one based where I am this morning. You see, I'm at the Sea of Galilee. That's what it's like. It's not really a sea. It's a really, really big lake. But it was called the Sea of Galilee because it was so big. And lots of the people around here fish in the Sea of Galilee. The disciples used to fish here as well. And in John chapter 21, it tells us about Peter, James, John, Thomas, and Nathaniel. And they come for a walk by the Sea of Galilee because they're not really sure what they should do next now Jesus has come back to life. Peter, being Peter, says, let's fish. Because Peter was a fisherman, that's what he did. So they went fishing. You can imagine them jumping in the boats and going out on the Sea of Galilee. Just with their thoughts maybe. Do you know, sometimes I like to fish. And to be honest, when I've got a lot on my mind, the best thing for me is actually going fishing. I just sit there. And maybe the disciples were like that. Maybe they were just spending their time, you're not doing much, just fishing. The only thing is, I don't think they were very good fishermen. Because they fished, and they fished, and they fished, and they caught nothing. Absolutely nothing. You can imagine, not only have they lost Jesus, then there's reports that he's come back, and now they can't catch any fish. Well, they're making their way back to shore, and there on the shore is a man. He shouts to them, he says, have you caught anything? They may have been a little bit embarrassed. They went, no. Put your net on the other side of the boat. Now that sounds a really, really, really crazy thing to say because they weren't fishing off an aircraft carrier. Okay? It's not a very big boat. So the fish on this side would have been the same as the fish on that side. Do you see what I'm saying? But nonetheless, they thought, well, we've tried everything else. So they put their net on the other side of the boat. Can you believe it? They start pulling in a net full of fish. It was crammed. In fact, it was so heavy they couldn't get it onto the boat. John turns to Peter and says, I remember this happening before. It's Jesus. Because Jesus has already done this miracle with his disciples way back at the beginning of Luke's gospel. Peter, being Peter, grabs his coat on, jumps in the water and starts wading to shore, leaving the other disciples to call a boat across, and they had to drag the net in between two boats. When they all get to shore, obviously Peter got there a little bit early, a little bit first. When they all get to shore, Jesus has made them food. There's some fish cooking on a fire, and he actually says, bring some of the fish you've caught. Let's have a meal together. Can you imagine them sitting together in the Sea of Galilee, talking about things? Maybe reminiscing, maybe Jesus was explaining things that had gone on, explaining what had happened. And in amongst all that, he turns to Peter and he says, Peter, do you love me? Now, the reason Jesus said that was because just before he died, Peter had actually said 3 times that he didn't know Jesus. He lied about knowing him. Jesus said to him, do you love me? Peter says, of course I love you. And Jesus said, well, feed my lambs. Now, that's a really strange thing to say to a fisherman. Because shepherds look after lambs, not fishermen. But what Jesus was saying, he was preparing Peter for what he was going to be doing next. Because Peter was going to be one of the leaders, one of the shepherds of God's flock. As in, one of the leaders of God's church. Jesus asked Peter again, he says, do you love me? And Peter says, yes, you know I love you, Lord. Jesus says, then take care of my sheep. And a 3rd time he asked Peter, he said, do you love me? And Peter says, you know I love you. He said, feed my lambs. 3 times, remember I said 3 times Peter had lied about knowing Jesus. And 3 times Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? And you know, after that 3rd time, I really believe that Peter knew Jesus had forgiven him. That it was like Jesus was saying to Peter, I know you love me, and I've got a special job for you to do now that I know that. It's amazing. You know, we've got loads more stories that are going to be happening all around different groups of people Jesus met. The one we're going to do next week involves 2 disciples walking on a long road, and it's really exciting. But you know, from this morning's story, nice and quick stories today, everyone's happy about that, because to be honest, this coat is starting to itch. I think maybe someone left it by some camels. I may have got a touch of camel flea. I'm not entirely sure. It's a bit, and then I need to shave. To be honest, I feel like I've been anyway. Oh dear, I'll never do that face again, promise. But what I want you to remember from this story, okay, is that even though Peter had done something really, really wrong, imagine Jesus, the Son of God, and 3 times he says, don't know who he is. Jesus, again, just like Mary in the garden, took time to stop on the shore, make him food, and ask him 3 times, do you love me? Because when I know that you do love me, Peter, I've got a very special job for you to do. And you know, when we do things wrong, there's nothing better than hearing someone say, I forgive you. When we say sorry, when we truly mean it, when we admit, yes, do you know what? As Peter did, he said, yeah, I do love you. That was his way of saying sorry, really. I do love you. When we say sorry, people forgive us. There's nothing better than that. Whether it's mum and dad, whether it's someone else, maybe it's a friend we've hurt. But how much more when we say sorry to God does he say, excellent, I forgive you. And not just that, and this is the bit, but I've got a very important job for you. Excellent, okay? Right, fine. So I'm going to try and find my way back now to Swansea. Now, is it, which way do you think that, oh, I mean, my tassels are that way or that way? I need to find a really, really fast camel. Maybe this way. Okay, right. Okay, so it'll be a long journey. Hopefully I'll see you next week. If I'm not here next week, maybe, I don't know, send someone to ancient Jerusalem to come and get me. I don't know, like Ryanair. Do they do to ancient? I'm not sure. Anyway, but give them a call. Okay, but in the meantime, stay safe. Okay, and see you next week. Bye, guys.